Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and welcome to yet another episode of your favorite adoption podcast. If you are checking us out on YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are checking us out over on Spotify or on Apple or on Amazon, make sure you give us a follow. And today in the building, I have an adoptive parent. Her name is Lekeshia Warren. Welcome, Lekeshia.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation. And I am so excited to talk to you because you're an adoptive parent. And the views of an adoptive parent are different than the views
Mhm.
of an adoptee or even a birth parent. So let's start with how did you become an adoptive parent? Like what happened? How did you come to this decision?
I ended up adopting three kids. It was two girls and one boy. The goal was not adoption in the beginning. This individual, their biological mother, was the daughter of a gentleman that my mom was engaged to.
Okay,
So
I want
me
to I
being
want to stop you already
okay.
because you said the goal was not adoption in the beginning. So do
Mhm.
you have biological children of your own?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I had three biological children of my own already.
Okay, already.
Yes. And
Okay,
when I say the initial goal was not adoption, it was because they were only supposed to be coming to stay with me temporarily. And they did not all come at one time. So I received a phone call that said, "Hey, I'm kind of in a bind. Can you get my son for me, who was 4 months old and was removed at birth?" So I'm like, okay, sure.
do
Why
you know
not?
why he was removed at birth? Do you know
So
the
he was
history?
removed. He was removed at birth because he had tested positive for drugs.
Okay,
But then there was already a case with the Department of Children and Families going on with the family already. So it was just it was a lot. It was a lot
okay,
going on.
okay.
So he was removed at birth. They had actually allowed him to go stay with his father's sister, who then took him and gave him back to the birth mother and the father.
Was she supposed to do that?
No, she was not supposed to do that. No. No, she was not. So at the time, or I'm sure they still do it now, but DCF would come out and they would do monthly checks to
Right,
check on the children, see what was going on with them, how things were going in their placement. And
right.
every time they would go out to visit him, he was never there. And the aunt at the time would be like, "Oh, he's with this person, he's with that person, oh, he's here, he's there." And so the maternal grandmother actually called in a tip to DCF and was like, "No, he's not. This person has given him back to his birth parents."
Why would she do that? Okay.
Because the whole family is crazy.
Okay.
So it's a lot. It is a lot. um so
You're okay.
Okay. So I would say maybe a few weeks after I'm gonna hold this. I would say maybe a few weeks after I received the phone. Not well, I'm not gonna even say a few weeks after I received the phone call. But a few weeks after DCF received that call, they did another pop-up visit and was like, "Hey, we're coming, we'll be there in 20 minutes and we need to see him."
Right.
And so when they did that pop-up visit, they removed him from the placement and they put him in foster care.
Okay.
So he had literally been in foster care for a few months. The other two girls, because there were seven kids total, and the other two girls that I had, they were with a friend of the biological mother. So their placement was set. They were good. So at the time, his name was Raphael, spelled real funny, exactly. And so he came, and just let me tell you something, he was a mess. He was
Mm.
a mess. He
And how old
literally
was he at this
he
point?
he was 4 months old.
A mess already at four
At
months?
4 months old.
Oh my goodness.
He would sit in the middle of the floor and like bang his head on the floor and just cry for hours.
Oh,
Hours. And to the point to where like we just had to sit on the floor with him and like put something underneath him to
so
stop him from headbanging. Like it was
wow.
sad.
Okay, you know what? That's interesting because I just had a conversation. I don't know if you caught last week's episode or the episode where I was speaking to Jimmy.
Okay.
And we talked about, when you have take in kids from the foster system. And I said, even as a baby, and he was like, well, that might be different. But I'm seeing now, even as a baby, it could
No.
still be some trauma there.
There definitely was some trauma there. Um well, a lot of that came from the drug use.
The drugs in the system,
The
yeah.
drugs in his system. So he tested positive for everything with the exception of crack cocaine and heroin. Everything else was in his system: cocaine, marijuana, Xanax, um, any recreational drug use, codeine, hydrocodone, like everything,
Everything. She was
everything.
wilding
So
out.
they
Okay.
literally had to wean him off of drugs as a newborn baby. Um,
But you knew this going in. You did not know this
I was
going
not
in.
told any of this. And what happens is they redact files. The DCF system will redact files, and they do not give adoptive parents full files until after the day of adoption.
Huh.
Yes. Yes. Well, and again, I didn't know this because the placement was only supposed to be temporary. It was always the goal that mom was working her case plan and she was going to get her children
Right,
back.
which is what foster care is supposed to be. Keep
Correct.
until
Mm-hmm.
and then okay.
Right. So they dropped him off to me. They didn't give me any diapers for a 4 month old baby, and I didn't have any babies in my house. Like my son, I mean he was 4, maybe 4 or 5.
But we're not in diapers
Yeah.
anymore. Right, yeah.
They didn't give me any diapers, they didn't give me a car seat, they gave me two
Yeah.
Ziploc sandwich bags. One bag had some antibiotics because he had had an ear infection and he had been to the hospital. The other bag, Ziploc freezer size bag, had his clothes in it. That is what they gave me. I literally had to go out to the store and buy everything for him
For a 4 month old
for a
baby.
4 month old baby.
Wow. Okay, yeah, it started off the chain.
It did. It
Okay.
did. So I would say that I had him for about 2 months. October, November, December, yeah, about 2 months. And then the biological mom started complaining about the placement for the girls. The one thing I can say throughout this whole system is that, or this whole journey, is that I've always felt like the system is way more lenient on the families that have neglected or, abused their children than they do the caretakers. Like, I would go pick her up. She would come over because by then, all three of them, 2 months after, I have three of them now. So I have my three
And
kids.
and the foster children that you have, they all have the same mother.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you have these three foster children and your three biological
Yes.
children. God
Yes.
bless you. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So, in the beginning, all the dads had no contact orders for the state. Mom had supervised visitations. So we would, and when I say we, I mean myself and the other caretakers, we would go pick mom up or she would get a ride over. I just needed help with simple stuff like being able to go to the grocery store because I drove a little Mitsubishi Mirage,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah,
can't put six
we're not
kids in
doing for kids
groceries
in
in
that.
a little
No, we're not.
Mitsubishi Mirage.
Do you happen to know why all the fathers had no contact? Were you privy to that?
Because they would not they would not get on the case plan with DCF.
Okay.
So they refused to comply.
Okay.
Right. With whatever DCF was asking them to do, if it was to do a monthly check or do a drug test, they just refused to comply.
Okay.
So they
Understood.
had no contact orders.
All right.
Mom
So
had
now we're with 6 kids in this Mitsubishi Mirage.
Right.
Okay.
So, I would, she would come over and, help out with, just sitting there watching the kids while I go to the store. But then it started to turn left because she would come over. In the beginning, she didn't do it. She would come over, she would be high, she would be making dates to go see other guys and just all kind of old stupid stuff, having the dads, around the corner, so when I go to the store they could see the kids, and just like all kind of shenanigans. So myself and another caretaker, we finally went back to DCF and we was like, we don't want to supervise any more visits. If you guys are going to arrange these visits, they need to be supervised via DCF.
Okay. Question. Is it
Hmm.
common for the foster parent to have supervised, like you are the supervisor of the supervised visit?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So mind you, I wasn't a foster parent. I never ventured over into becoming a foster parent. I was their relative caregiver.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which is why they just dropped them off.
pretty much. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yep.
Proceed.
Okay. So we went to DCF and we was like, listen, like we're just exhausted. Like moving forward, you guys need to supervise the visits. And so that's what they did. And I would say this, maybe at this point Joshua was maybe 7 or 8 months old now. That literally was the last time that she saw her kids.
Oh.
Yeah.
So by 7 or 8 months, is he doing better?
He's doing a little better. He doesn't sleep much at night. He screams, yells. That just stayed like a part of his normal routine. Even when I was able to get him in daycare, I found a really, really good daycare, and the director of the daycare had experience with such similar situations,
Hmm.
and she would literally have to get on the floor with him at nap time just to get him to go to sleep. And he ate like you would not believe. And they say that is one of the side effects for children who are born with drugs in their system, is they become overeaters, outside of the other chemical stuff that they're dealing with. Um, so as he got to be older, and when I say older, I'm talking about maybe 5, 6, 7, 8ish,
Hmm.
is when I would say he probably mellowed out just a little bit. There was always something about him though that was different. He, you know how when you talk about kids that have ADHD and you say, oh, they're always moving and they're always doing something and they just have to fidgeting and they have to do
Hmm.
something with their hands. He wasn't necessarily a fidgeter, and he could sit down and watch a 2 hour movie or watch an hour and a half movie, and you could say, sit right there and don't move, and he would not do it. But you could always tell that there was something like turning, like something just moving. And but he's smart. He is super, super smart. Um, Maybe a little too smart for his own good. At 16 now. But yeah, so that was my beginning journey.
Okay, wait, I
So
have a question. So do you,
uh-huh.
at this point, 5, 6, 7, 8, do you still have the girls as well?
Yes. So what has happened between 4 months and now is the girls came, they moved in. They were supposed to be going out to a placement in California with their paternal aunt and uncle.
Okay.
That placement was denied because the husband, who is now a prominent pastor of a megachurch in California, in
Mhm.
1972, went to jail for murder. He was in a gang. But in 1972, we're talking about 2000s now. Yeah.
And they denied it.
And they denied the placement. So at that point, that is how adoption became an option, because I was tired of DCF in my house every month, looking in my cabinets, talking to like my biological kids.
Yeah.
I just felt like I was always under a microscope, and she wasn't. So
Yeah.
she had
I was just
actually,
going to ask you, what were they doing about her?
what ended up happening, how they had she took forever for this case plan to just come to fruition, but she was supposed to be working her case plan. She kept getting pregnant, and part of her order was she was not supposed to get pregnant again. She kept getting pregnant. She got pregnant. She lost that baby. By the time, I'm gonna say 3 months later, they go back to court again, she's pregnant again.
Again.
They told her that she was coming, she would have to take a random drug test. And the judge said, I want a pregnancy test also. When they tested her that time, the judge was like, I'm done. I want her rights terminated. Let's figure something else out, because you're not serious about this. And so at that point, again, I'm like, okay, so y'all just gonna let her off scot-free like that. And so
Yeah,
I
and
was like,
then they're got you under a microscope.
right. So I was like, you know what? I was like, when is National Adoption Day? Because they was like, well, when is National Adoption Day? I said, because I'm sick of y'all. Like, I'm tired of you all. And so that's how I ended up adopting them. And at one point, there was even a point where they were going to still find placement for the girls. And then I just keep the son. But then they had a psychologist come in and do an evaluation of all the kids, and where the two girls had been together for the longest, they said that if they separated the two younger ones, which was the girl and the boy, that it would probably cause way more trauma than anybody could ever imagine, because they had developed such a bond.
Hmm.
Um, so I was like, okay, because I was having issues with the oldest one. I was like, oh,
So, did
okay.
you
So,
not have any issues with the girls? Did they not have any drugs in their system at birth? Or
um, the oldest one, no. The one right before the second girl, yes, but it was just like, a little bit of cocaine. Like nothing major, nothing. Not, I'm not saying nothing major,
I
but
understand,
not
not like what the her brother.
right,
Yeah,
right.
all the things.
Nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. So, do you mind sharing how old they are now?
So now they are 23, 17, and 16.
So, two of them are still home.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So
Explain.
currently right now, only the 17-year-old is home, which is a girl, because the 16-year-old has decided that he does not want to follow the rules of the house. So he has actually left the state of Florida and went to a state where they say that a 16-year-old can decide where they want to stay, because they're their own governing body, and he doesn't have to come back.
Okay. First of all, I did not know that there were states that said that
Hmm.
about a 16-year-old.
Yes. Me either. Me either.
And so that at 16, basically, you are grown and the end.
Correct.
So the state of Florida, like,
So
what?
it's been a fight, because he had never gotten in trouble in the state of Florida. Like, legally, let me tell you something. The boy has some grace on his life, because every time I would call or report something to law enforcement, like he was stealing my car, he was going out the window, every time I would report something, if he had went out the window and I didn't know where he would show right back up before they would push the button to put him in the system as a missing person or a runaway or having stolen my car. He would literally show up just in the nick of time. So the state of Florida is saying that because he's in Boston, Massachusetts, they can't override Boston because they don't have a legal order from the state of Florida to remove him from Boston,
So let me get
because
this
I've
right.
never had an open case or anything.
So a 16-year-old can pick up
Hmm.
and okay, did he know he was going to a state where he could be left alone?
No. So what happened was, Father's Day, I woke up to get ready for church, wake them up for church. He was gone. He was gone out the window.
Did something okay, hold on. Before we get to that story.
Hmm.
Why was he or why was he doing these things? You might not know, but like leaving and still in the car and doing this stuff, or was he just being a typical? Well, I won't say typical, but some teenagers go through that thing when they start doing that kind of crazy stuff.
That
Um,
honestly, that's been my whole take, right? It's your association. And then it's also, this is just typical, teenage stuff, right? But it's
or
hmm
uh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
but it's just been so much, right? It's been so much of it. My kids were in private school, all the way through, I'm going to say, Joshua's ninth grade year. His ninth grade year, we had discussed, hey, maybe let's try putting you guys back in public school. And honey, when he got back to public school, he jumped off the front porch. Like, he was he was doing all kinds of things, skipping class,
Oh,
vaping in the bathroom. I went to the school because he had a phone, and I found so much camera video footage and social media footage of stuff that was going on when he was in school. I went to the school to find out how y'all don't know this stuff is going on. Like, it was hours, days, months of stuff in this phone where he's never in class. He's never doing his work. Like, he's in there jumping off the desk. He's a class clown.
jumping off the desk.
And they call that vandalism, honey, by the way. Had he broke that desk, they said they would have charged me for it.
Uh, but here's my question.
Okay.
Because we've also done an episode about that generational, they just what's on the inside of you, that
Yeah.
generational curse, the
Yes.
DNA. Do
Yeah.
you feel like you're fighting against that as well?
And I feel like that's what he's dealing with. I feel like he is trying to. He's always felt different. He's always, I could put him in a room with his biological mother, and he would not know that that was her. The only way he knew that I was not his mother was because his oldest sister told them as young children that they were never to call me mother. They had a mother. I was not their mother. I would never be their mother, and don't call me mom.
Okay, stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
So he grew up with that planet in his head.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did they treat you? Did they uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Girl, get that phone together.
It get good to us, and
I
then it
know.
just starts
Even the
moving.
phone is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, like, this is a lot.
So how did they treat you growing up? Or how do they still
So
treat you?
so Joshua and I, we had always had a bond. We just always did. And he's told me, he said, I know that you're not my mother. They call me auntie because they knew me as their mother's sister. So they call me
Okay.
auntie.
Okay.
One thing about this kid, he's not disrespectful. He does not have a disrespectful bone in his body. I know that may sound crazy.
Mm-mm.
I could tell him, go do X, Y, and Z, and he will do it He's yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Granted, when he gets around his other friends, his little, people
Yeah.
that he wants to be around, then he kind of like, changes up his tone just a little bit, but with his friends, not with me. So I felt like we've always had a bond. However, it's just the last couple of years have been rough. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't experience this with my biological kids. So I probably didn't always say the right stuff. I probably didn't always, and I'm not a parent that like I beat you for every single thing. I do more fussing. Like I'll fuss. I may say some stuff, but like I don't beat you for every little single thing that you do. I'm just not like that, right? But it had just got to it had got to a point to where I was like, listen, if I do put my hands on you, I'm gonna hurt you because you're doing stuff that for me, I haven't experienced. I know my family demons. I know what we battle with in
Mm,
my family. And granted, I've been around your family somewhat, so I kind of know what your family deals with. But
but
that ain't my. I'm not expert in that one. You
did
know
you
what
think
I'm.
about any of that going in, or have you just now here recently started thinking about those demons that he's dealing with
I
just
would
DNA was in
I
him?
would have to say, and I'll be honest with you. No, I never thought about it. I never thought about it until he started doing stuff because I believed I got him at 4 months old. I believed that if I provided a
Hmm.
certain environment
Yeah.
for these kids, that
Hmm.
it would alter the trajectory of where their life could have been headed. I literally believe that. I
And
have not I haven't dated because the oldest daughter, she saw things. She saw men do things to her mother. She saw her mother doing things with men and women and all kind of stuff. So I didn't bring people around them. And I'm not saying that in the beginning I wasn't, I didn't wasn't seeing anybody, but I didn't see anybody around my children. And I'm the same way with my older children. Other than their dad, they've only seen me probably with two other men, and I'm 50 years old.
okay.
Now that don't mean I don't have a past,
Well, we all do.
but I wanted to be able to provide them as much of a normal life that I possibly could. And a normal life like that, like what I would provide to my children.
And I want to say, because I've heard other adoptive parents say that if I, adopt, I give them a better life,
Mhm.
then I can change. And I'm sure that you did alter some of the trajectory, but it's still hard to fight what's
Right.
already inside of that child.
Right.
And I've said it before, adoptive parents, you have to be mindful of that, and most of them don't even think about it.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
glad that you are thinking about it, because
Mhm.
some of them would go through this and still be like, well, what did I do wrong? And still
Right.
never have the thought that, no, you dealing with something way deeper.
Right.
Is what's already on the inside of that child.
Yeah, and I felt that too. Like I just said, I'm like, okay, because we even before the Father's Day incident, we had a conversation, and I feel like he's using that conversation against me now, and he's trying to take it out of context. Because I told him, I said, if you go out my window again, I had literally woke up a couple of weeks before Father's Day, and something just told me to go check his room, and I'm not crazy. I know he was just coming back in that window,
Look,
and
that motherly intuition is real.
it's
Don't play with
real.
us. We
It's
know.
real. It's real. And then you factor in the Holy Ghost. And that's what I told him. I said, now listen, my
Come
Holy
on.
Ghost works sometimes. May not work all the time, but it works sometimes. And so I told him, I said, if you go out that window again, I said, because my biggest thing is you're leaving your sister at the end of this hallway. Somebody see you go out the window, they could come in the window. Her room is right next door to yours. They can go in there and do something to hurt her.
Hmm.
So I was very adamant. I said, if you go out that window again, we're gonna have an issue when you come back in here. And so I feel like he's using that against me now.
Yeah,
Um,
but I mean, you go out the window and then leave The state. What?
Well, yeah. So he had told my daughter that he was at his friend's house. So he said, "Oh, I'm at a friend's house, and things are just really kind of different between me and Auntie right now. So I'm gonna stay here for like a day or so, and then I'll be back home." And so my daughter was like, "Okay, well, just go home, come pack a bag, and then you can come," because my daughter lives in Georgia, and
Okay.
she was like, "You can come, stay in Georgia for a couple of weeks." He had agreed to do that. They were talking back and forth. They were in conversation back and forth.
Okay.
The Sunday of Fathers was no, the next Sunday. I come in the house and my phone rung and I knew immediately who it was. And it was DCF. And they stated that they had gotten a call that I put my son out. I abandoned and neglected him. I put him out, and that he had went to a friend's house. Something happened at the friend's house. They put him out there, and then he had ended up in another state.
I don't know how to feel about DCF right now.
Exactly.
All that you have done,
Mm-hmm.
and here we
So,
are.
and I knew immediately where he was. I know the person who he's with. I don't think that it's an unsafe environment. It's not an environment of my choice, but it's not an unsafe environment.
Okay.
So then they was like, well, why didn't I report him as a missing person? And I said, well, because to me, he wasn't missing. He was talking to my daughter. He said that
Right.
he was, he doesn't have a phone. So they were talking via Instagram. I don't have his Instagram. However, when I finally did speak to him on the phone, he had literally contacted the person in Boston the very day that he went out the window and we had our little exchange of words, because he did come back, but I told him, I said, "You're high." He was high. I said, "You're high and you're not coming in my house like that." So I told him, I said, "You need to go wherever you just come from, sober up, and I'll see you later." He called the friend from Boston immediately. They sent for him immediately. He was literally in Boston by the next day. Now, how he got on the plane, I have no idea. The person does have an aunt here that possibly picked him up, took him to the airport. She's worked in social services for over 30, 40 years, so I'm sure she got some backdoor somethings to whatever. And so that's how we're here now, with him not being
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Huh.
Hmm.
Okay. Wow. That, huh. You got me speechless right
Yeah.
now. So,
And this was the second time that this person has, and this was a friend of our family's,
okay.
um, that Joshua and this person have kept in touch for a very long time. He spent some Christmas breaks, summer breaks. They were friends. I don't know where the breakdown came between myself and this other adult. But I'm gonna say maybe about 6 months ago, they called DCF on me again because they alleged that I was verbally, physically, and mentally abusive towards him,
Hmm.
and that I allowed his sister to do whatever she wanted to do. She gets to dance, she gets to do this, she gets to do that, but I constantly make excuses as to why he can't. Boo Boo, his GPA was a 1.0 at the time. He can't participate in anybody's extracurricular activity, and that's not my fault.
Right.
I
Yeah, you
don't.
have to have grace to participate in
Yeah, so I didn't understand like where that breakdown came from. And DCF was, and at that time I think that was like back when we found out that he was still in the car and doing all this other crazy stuff.
oh my God. God
Yeah.
bless you.
So now let me tell you, because I'm gonna tell you, of all of them, it's when you asked how did they treat me, the one who I had no relationship with whatsoever was my 17-year-old.
Okay.
She was just existing in the house the entire time. And I've oftentimes said that there was just a void there that I just could not fill, and it did not matter what I did or how I tried to do it. We just did not connect. I would have to say her 15th birthday. So I've had her since she was like 1.5.
And no connection.
No
That's
connection.
got to be rough,
No
Lekeshia.
connect. Like, it had become to the point to where I was like, I resented doing this. Like, why did I do this? Like, and I've never been like, oh, you got to call me mom, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. I've never been that type of person. Like, they're good kids, but there was just no connection there. So right before her 15th birthday, I was praying and I was like, okay, God, I need you to give me something to connect with her. Like we can't do this for the rest of our life. Like, we would be in the house and she wouldn't come out the room. I would come in my room. Like, we would just speak, hey, bye, whatever. No hugs, no physical affection, no nothing. And so for her 15th birthday, I did a mommy and daughter day out. Her favorite color is yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had some t-shirts made and we dressed alike and we did just a whole day. We went to get our nails done. We went to get our eyebrows done. We went out to eat. We did a bunch of stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the entire day. I didn't let anybody else interrupt what we had going on. They were not allowed to. I didn't take any phone calls, no anything. When I tell you that baby is like my little bestie right now,
Oh.
she is amazing. Now for her, she deals with a learning disability.
Okay.
So she's currently 17 and she's just not going to the 10th grade.
Okay.
So there were a lot of for her, I feel like she was just in this shell because she knew that something was wrong with her. And I told them, like, when she first went to school, I said, something not right. I said, I don't know what it is. I said, I don't know how to do it. But by the 3rd grade, we were practicing sight words, and it didn't matter if it was the word I, not just the letter. It was like so much was missing. And for the life of me, I was like, okay, what is it? So that's how they ended up in private school. So I pulled them out of public school, put them in private school. The first school she was in, they told me, like, for after mid-year, they was like, she can't come back next year because she was so far behind
Mm-hmm.
grade level. They recommended another school. She had an amazing 3rd grade teacher. And as soon as I walked in the door, I said, listen, let me tell you what I've been experiencing. I said, I just don't know which way to go. I don't know what to do, because when I would ask public school to help me, they would say, oh, well, she made a few gains this year. So, we'll wait till next year. We'll test her next
They
year.
were
And
still
next year never
pushing her
came.
through.
Right. Next year never came. Her 3rd grade teacher at this private school, the first week of school, she called me. She had set up an appointment for us. She set it up for us to go to non-public services to have her tested. And we went, like, maybe, I'm going to say, a month later.
Mm-hmm.
By December, she was tested. We had results. They had everything. And so this particular private school, because most private schools don't follow IEPs, this private school, they accommodated her based on what that assessment was from non-public services. So she's been able to, get back on track just a little bit. A lot of her shyness and a lot of her introvertedness is because I am the oldest kid in the classroom, and
Mm-hmm.
people are looking at me now like, why are you here? So she's the one that nobody better not mess with. And if she decides that she wants to stay home forever, she can stay home forever, because I just feel like, it's a cruel world. And
Yeah.
as soon as someone realizes that they can take advantage of her, they
Mm-hmm.
will. And so for her, she'll just be sitting there like, okay,
Okay.
okay, okay. And I'd be like, nope, nope, nope.
Okay.
But so yeah, so that is like, we have an amazing bond now. I mean, it was a journey. And so we finally just had to have that hard conversation and said, okay, I know I'm not your mom, right? Like, I'm not, but I broke it down to her. I was like, well, when you don't feel good, I'm like, you come crawl in my bed and you're like, oh, this hurt, that hurt, this hurt, that hurt. And I'm like, when it's time to go to school, when it's time to just the basic needs. Like
Mhm.
everybody gets mad at the house because she has the second master bedroom. So why does she have a bedroom with the bathroom? Because she's a girl, number one, and because it's my house. That's why.
Oh my
So,
goodness. You're
so of all, and I recently received a phone call even from the oldest one because there was some things that happened with the oldest sibling. And she reached out to me via, I think it was one of my inboxes, and she was like, I want to tell you that I'm sorry. She was like, I really thought that you was just this nasty person that just wanted to keep us from our mother. She said, but I really wish I would have listened to you. She
hmm.
said all you wanted, and it was true. All I wanted to do was protect them. And I've told them from day one, like the state says that when you're 18, you can petition them, even though they know where she is, but you can petition them to reunify with your
Did
mom.
something happen to make her reach out to you and apologize?
Probably so. I'm sure. I'm sure. Her relationship with her mother her biological mother is extremely toxic. There's still a lot of inappropriate stuff going on in that relationship, and truth be told, she resents her mom. She
Mhm.
resents her, and she talks to her like she's a dog. And so I tell her all the time when she calls me, or even if there's been times where the mom has called me and been like, can you please talk to her? And I tell her all the time, I don't care what she's done. I don't care what she's done. I don't care how you feel. You will not disrespect her, like, at all. So I've always made sure that they even knew, like, as kids, like, and I've told them, like, it wasn't that she didn't love you. She didn't lose you because she didn't love you.
Yeah.
She lost you because she just could not get it together.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, so that was always my take on that. But I did not allow that toxicness around them. I wouldn't, if and I think that's one of the things, and I said this when we were at dinner the one night. The biggest mistake I think that adopted parents or adopted people who adopt kids make
Hmm.
is if you know that family. I am a firm believer that, and not it's not I'm not saying believer, but it is my opinion that you should adopt. And I know why the system does it. They want to keep you with, friends or family that you're familiar with, and I totally understand that. But there's a lot of interferences from the biological family because they don't understand, and I think that was a lot of my issue. They don't understand what adoption really means. I had this family talk about me like a dog because I changed their last name to my last name. I had this family talk about me like a dog because my name was on their birth certificate. That wasn't something I did. That's what comes with the
That's what
adoption.
comes with the adoption.
You're no
You
longer
get a
legally their parent. I am.
you get a new
So
birth certificate and
right,
yeah.
right, everything. So I feel like when it came to the oldest sibling, that's where that, oh, you don't call her your mother, we have our own mother, so on and so forth, came from.
Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
So being that the kids were older when you adopted them, do
Mm-hmm.
you think why didn't you just leave their last name what it was?
For me, it was about my family unit. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want, I don't know. I didn't want, I wanted us to be, I wanted to change maybe their identity. Maybe that's what I thought I was doing. Maybe I thought that if I changed their last name, then they wouldn't remember. They wouldn't know. They would forget.
That's
Maybe. I don't
maybe.
know. Yeah, I don't know.
Now in hindsight, do you wish that maybe you had not changed your last name or
No.
okay.
Nope.
But do
No.
you now at least understand that by changing the last name really it's just that, just changing the last
Oh,
name?
that's it. That's all
That's
it did. It but for me, I gave them a part of me. And even if Joshua never comes back and I never see him again, the one thing that he will know is that he was raised by me, and he's legitly a Warren. Now, he may have some other issues going on that makes him, what his and then I'm sorry, another issue with this whole name thing was because there were so many, I think that's their daddy. Oh, I think that's their daddy. Oh, this one may be their daddy. That was huge for me back then too, right? Because you ain't even 100% sure who your kid's father could be.
Mm.
So we
And
finna be,
they had her last name or the potential father's last name, or
they so Joshua had the potential father's last name. And then the girls had her last name,
okay.
which was crazy because their dad was solid, their dad. So I don't even know how but then he was a jerk too, so that's probably why they they had her last name.
I
But
got it.
yeah.
Okay. And so I want to know, outside of, because I love what you said about adopting and knowing the family and
Hmm.
the interference that it causes. Is there anything else that you would want to say to adoptive parents now that you've lived this and you kind of have a different take on some things? What would you say?
Um, I would say, um, maybe really evaluate why you're adopting,
Mm.
right? Um, I don't know why people think there's just so much money in fostering and adopting kids, because it's not. So if that's your, if you think about it from that point of view and that's your reason or your goal, then that's definitely not the right answer.
Mhm.
But I would say really, really stay on top of the agency that you are adopting these kids from. Do not allow them to not be open and honest with you about what you're getting into.
Right. Because that's
What you're
wild that you didn't know any of this
Mm-hmm.
until it's like, okay, almost like, okay, this is your problem now. Here's
Right.
the truth. Here's
Right.
everything.
And that is exactly how I felt. I felt like I said, they just dropped him off and they was like, bam, here you go. I felt as though that's how, because I've even reached back out to that agency where they were adopted from, and I'm like, okay, well, what programs are out there for adopted kids who start to have issues, in their placement? And
Nothing.
there's nothing
Nothing.
for
I
the
know.
life of me. And I one thing about it is I am very empathetic to Joshua with what he may be going through, because he's just trying to find himself in a world that is said, you're already a black male, in
Right.
a world that has already said, not only are you a black male, but you weren't even worthy enough to be raised by your mothers. This other lady who
Mhm.
isn't even, related to your mother, has taken care of you, all of these years. So he has a lot that he has going on and that he's dealing with, and we did therapy. So if we did therapy, that little
There
hood
still
booger
needs to be
lot
some post adoptive services,
services,
and
yes,
even post adoptive services that particularly gear towards Black
males,
males,
yeah,
females, the Black community, period.
yes, I
Even
agree
for
with you.
adoptive parents, birth parents,
Hmm.
there needs to be programs in place because
Correct, and I
it's a
totally agree with you.
lot.
I
It's a
totally agree
lot.
with you.
And
Yeah,
there's nothing. I'm
right.
aware.
Yeah,
There's
nothing,
nothing.
nothing, nothing, and that was the answer that I got. They was like, well, we don't have anything. So you're telling me that my family is the first family that has ever experienced this? And I work in the social service field.
Right.
So I know, I was a case manager at one point, and I literally had a family who the lady was like, nope, I want my adoption retracted. She was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And even in that, so if it gets to that extreme, so then you start to see, oh well, we could do this and we can do that and we could, no, those things need to be put in. There needs to be an adoption
Yeah,
support
because
group.
then you start getting into rehoming, and that's
Correct.
a whole nother podcast.
Correct.
And for the family that doesn't know what rehoming is, it means you've adopted a child.
Hmm.
You're like, I'm not doing this. And there
Hmm.
are people, sometimes they don't go back to the agency. There are
Nope.
Facebook groups,
Hmm.
and people are rehoming these kids, and it's not, nothing's on paper. It's not like they're some kind of item. Like there's
Right.
like this is it's a problem. It's a real thing. And
Right.
so you got to be careful when you get into this adoption, because
Yes.
it is a lot. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I started doing this podcast. People don't understand. And us, Black people, as my
Hmm.
husband tells me to say, Black people, not African American. If you
Uh-huh.
caught that podcast, please go back and watch it if you did. Black people, um, it's these conversations, they got to happen.
They
And
do.
then the next step is to get these services off the ground and
Right.
offering to the people that are within this adoption community, because there's it's a lot going on out here.
Right.
And
Right.
so we can wrap it up right here.
Okay.
Your story, like, girl, I'm hot. I have gone on a whole emotional journey over here.
Right, right. I kept saying, like, you cannot cry. I had to tell myself, you cannot cry. You cannot cry. But even in dealing with this situation with my son now, I was like packing up his room, and I had a meltdown yesterday while I was packing his things, and I was like, at the end of every day, I just want him to be safe. And my prayer was that I was sitting in my living room and I'm actually doing his laundry before I pack his stuff and have it sent to him. Imagine that. And
That's what mamas
so
do.
right. And so I'm sitting there and I'm crying and I'm like, God, protect him.
Yeah.
I'm like, if he decides that he hates me, Tarsha, and we never speak again, I don't want any ill will to come to him. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it because
Mhm.
he is my baby and I love him. And again, would I do some things differently? Yes, I would. I
Sure.
probably would have put myself in some extensive therapy
Mm.
as well as did some family therapy with them. I would have. And I'm not saying that it wasn't a thought. Um, during this whole journey, it always has been. But you know how we are with therapy. We're like, okay, maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. And
Honey,
my aunt always says to me, she says, Keisha, I think you need therapy. And I really
you.
realized
I think you still need to
I
go.
do. That's what I was getting ready to say. I do. I do, because this has been like a death to me. Like that's how I feel. I have lost something. And regardless of what, like, I've had him since he was 4 months old.
Yeah. You've been through a lot.
So
It's we
yes.
here, but we gonna pray his safety, pray for
Yes.
his safety, and for a good outcome, and for your relationship. I don't believe that it's going to just end and just be what it is right now. I think this is
Right.
just a moment in
Right.
time. I do.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome. And thank you for coming on here and sharing that that story.
thank you.
And
Thank you.
believe it or not, you're gonna help somebody as an adoptive parent, as a foster parent. You're gonna help somebody look at it differently, think about it differently, even if they wanted to adopt and maybe it wasn't for the right reasons. And even if hearing your story makes them not adopt, I think that's still a good
Right.
thing,
Right.
because don't do it for the wrong reasons.
No.
You're, yeah,
No.
so
Do not, because you're causing further damage,
causing further damage,
further
right?
damage to
So
these
your
kids. They
story, your
don't deserve it.
testimony, and family, we will keep up with Lekeshia for sure. And
Thank
when we
you.
have updates, and they're going to be amazing updates, I know it because I
Thank
know
you.
the God that we serve.
Thank you.
We will bring her back for her testimony, her update. We'll bring her back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Adoption Journey podcast. And until next week, bye, family.
Bye. Thank you.
Welcome.